Discover how mastering compliance and logistics in healthcare technology gives you a competitive edge. This episode dives into how legal savvy can transform your health tech innovation into a strategic powerhouse. Join us as we learn from industry leaders, revealing the key strategies to navigate and excel in the complex world of healthcare innovation.
Welcome to Provider's Edge, the podcast that helps healthcare entrepreneurs and innovators break down barriers and control their business, life, and future with valuable action steps. With me, your host, Sabrina Rombach, a recovered clinician and a business deal catalyst. Let's rewrite the rules and create a positive social impact while increasing your profitability. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode. I'm your host, Sabrina. And today we have Bethany here with us, another amazing lady in the space of healthcare innovation who has years of experience in the legal sector. Those are the people that protect us, protect you, and with all the amazing things that you're building. So Bethany is a healthcare innovation, FemTech, and a privacy attorney on a mission to help thought leaders, companies to truly revolutionize the global women's health sector. And she is the managing partner of Women's Health Innovation Consulting. That's her law firm, and the co-founder of Fun Innovation for all the newer ideas in FemTech to truly help all of you guys who are gifted innovators get to a place that you can make an imprint in the marketplace. So I'm so excited for Bethany here with me. We got connected a while ago on LinkedIn. Yay, LinkedIn. And we got chatting and we started talking about what she does, how we both in a space of helping the right solutions in the healthcare space actually make impact and not just thinking about having impact and not just believe you made something going, but actually create impact. And I know you guys all believe impact is measured in different ways. It's not just number of people's lives or even revenue. In Postpoint, she's on the board for us, right? Postpoint path, we actually define it by 12 different sectors. So excited to have this conversation with you, Bethany, to be on our platform. We are a group of listeners who are executives and innovators and leaders in a healthcare place, whether they are entrepreneurs themselves or part of the larger organization. And definitely legal, I feel like is a topic that some people stay away from.
Oh, Sabrina, it's hysterical that you say that because I find that lawyers are usually innovators' least favorite people to talk to. So to quote from Mean Girls, I'm not a regular lawyer. I'm a cool lawyer. And we definitely do need to have those conversations to protect your companies.
Oh, yeah. It's not just a critical part to protect. It's safety ground. I think most people believe, regulation, they're just trying to keep me outside, right? They're the gatekeepers. And they're the ones who have to jump through hoops for any policy changes. But we have to change our perspective. First is how can we leverage the right help, the people in the right seat to support us so you have the good safety foundation and then not taking your amazing gifted ideas away.
Oh, absolutely. And that's the thing too, we often hear is that regulation is the death of innovation. And I really like to flip that on its head because there is a way in which regulation can actually help both consumers and innovators and actually make products much more accessible and honestly, interesting, right? And attractive to consumers.
Moving beyond the notion of compliance as a mere checklist, savvy legal knowledge empowers founders to craft innovative strategies that propel their venture to the forefront of the industry. Our field expert, Bethany, eloquently shared Regulation should not be seen as a hindrance, but a means to make products more accessible. This enlightened view encourages entrepreneurs like you to utilize legal frameworks as fundamental elements for building consumer trust and expanding market share. Through this lens, compliance becomes more than a requirement. It's a strategic tool that, when shielded effectively, can catapult a health tech venture to a new high and recognition in a competitive landscape.
So it's really important not to think of regulation and laws as hampering innovation in the company that you're building, but rather looking at them instead as a way in which you can develop market differentiators and claim more of the market share that's out there by having good legal hygiene.
Oh, so well put. And we believe that regulation and how do we be compliant is not just to say there's a bubble that you stay within, but also it's about what can you leverage in the way that you're building businesses and putting your right foot forward. So I would say, let's talk about your work, especially with Fem Innovation. It's a group that truly supports FemTech and those newer ideas, those pre-seed level of companies. What do you see are some of their challenges that typically that you have to have conversation with?
Yeah. So as you mentioned, Sabrina, we do work with early and mid-stage women's health innovation companies. For those who aren't familiar with the term, right? FemTech is really referring to women's digital health solutions that are out there. And so we like to help companies get off the ground and get started into the marketplace where they're ready to raise their first or their second fundraising rounds. And there's a lot of common questions and concerns that we get, some of which are unique to femtech companies and some of which are much more broadly applicable to health tech companies in general. So I would say some of the typical questions we get starting at the beginning are, how do I form my company? What company is right for me to form, depending on whether or not you want to be raising capital down the line. That's an important distinction. We also get a lot of questions around protecting early stage IP. And that's important from a couple perspectives. The ones that everyone's probably most familiar with are trademarks and patents. And, for trademarks, oftentimes I hear companies not wanting to go through the trademark process because they don't understand how valuable it is to protect their IP. And what I say to that really is it's not just about protecting your IP. It's also about making sure that you're not infringing on somebody else's already claimed IP. And one of the key problems I see for early stage companies is they don't do a trademark search. And so they're not protecting their IP, but they haven't checked to see if they're infringing on someone else's. They get their product to market, right? They now have an established customer base. And then we see an issue where they get a cease and desist letter from the company who has trademarked that name. That can then cost a ton of money, not only to make that situation go away, right? But also to rebrand yourself in front of consumers, especially if you're an early stage company. So that's a common pitfall we see as well. Another one that's more unique to femtech has to do with data privacy. And while that's a concern for all health tech across the board, it has become much more important in femtech companies since the Dobbs decision, because women's health data can potentially be used against them depending on where somebody is located. And so we've seen, unfortunately, a lot of mistrust from consumers in using these femtech products right now. And so it's really, how do we build back that trust? Well, we can do it with good data privacy and security principles embedded into products and companies. And that's an instance, as we were talking about earlier, Sabrina, where the law can actually be a competitive differentiator if you are building structures and foundations that are going to protect your consumers. So we talked through whether or not HIPAA applies, whether or when you should comply with HIPAA, even if it doesn't comply, like if you're trying to get partnerships, what that strategy looks like and why they may require data privacy compliance. We talk about cyber insurance, when that's necessary and how you can protect yourself against cyber attacks and cyber breaches. And that I would say is kind of another key category that early stage founders struggle with is really understanding that just because you're new and early doesn't mean a hacker's not going to come after you. And a lot of companies don't realize that they are stepping stones into those larger healthcare organizations. So those are kind of some of the key issues that we see. Obviously, we deal a lot more as well with FDA regulations, contracting, things like that as well. But those are some of the high level ideas.
Perfect. So let's break some of those ideas down. I think the first thing you said about is company formation. So I would always think about in early stages, people, some of them have just by themselves as the founder, some have multiple co-founders. So the question I always been hearing is, how do we do that? Because they have financial tie into, do we need to create a C Corp? Do we need to have just one founder that owns the company and only profit split with other co-founders or other entities? Or do they all have to go in and then let's say the three founders have a different percentage of profit split because someone is more of an investor, some other one is more the operational, right? So how do you really help people throw fizzle out all those questions and line into the best solutions in just that company formation stage?
Yeah, it's a great question, one with a ton of moving parts. So the first thing that I always ask is, what is your long-term goal for your company? Is it something where you want to have venture capital investment or not? Or are you instead going to be bootstrapping? Or maybe this is something that's instead just, a side venture that you've got. If you are anticipating raising venture capital funding, I absolutely recommend that you form as a Delaware C Corp because that is the corporate vehicle that investors are going to look for.
Opting for Delaware C Corp or a LLC isn't just about adhering to legal norms. It's about making a calculated choice that can significantly influence your company's appeal to investors, its capacity for growth, and its operational flexibility. This choice is a reflection of your vision for the company and should be in sync with your long-term business objectives. It's about creating a robust framework that not only meets your current needs, but also paves the way for future expansion and success. The corporate structure you select will determine how you attract funding, manage equity, and deal with various stakeholders. If you haven't done so, subscribe now to the latest insight and actionable tips from our experts. Let's rewrite the rules for your business and create a positive change in healthcare. Now, let's get back to the show.
It's what they know. And if you don't have a Delaware C Corp, you will raise questions with investors later on who are very attracted to that corporate structure. So that's kind of the first baseline question that I always ask. Now, let's say that venture capital investment may not be on your radar right now, or it's something you say, maybe in 10 years, maybe in 5 years, but for our immediate term, that's not what we're interested in. Then I absolutely think that you need to consider a different type of corporate structure that provides you some protection. Because your options, right? Let's say that you're a single person, you could technically do a sole proprietorship, but that's not going to give you any protection. So that means, for instance, let's say that you breach a contract, right? Or something goes wrong. There's no distinguishing factor between your company and you yourself as an individual. So somebody will come after you for something that goes wrong with the company. So while sole proprietorships are very easy to form because they don't require paperwork or registration with the state, you're not getting any type of protection. Similar thing with a partnership, right? That's similar to a sole proprietorship, except you have 2 or more people. It doesn't give you any type of protection. So if you're not going to go with a C Corp, I recommend checking out the limited liability company formation. And so an LLC, it has the advantage of having pass-through taxation, right? So the corporate structure, depending on how it's formed, but let's say you have a traditional C Corp, that's typically going to be subject to double taxation. What that means is you're going to get taxed at the corporate level when that income comes in, and then you'll get taxed whenever it's distributed as dividends to the shareholders. So that's a double taxation structure. LLCs are nice because you don't have that. You just get pass-through taxation to the owner or the members, which is great. But the LLC gives you that protection that you wouldn't have in a sole proprietorship or a partnership, where you're not going to essentially be piercing that veil for the entity. So the entity itself is not, if it gets in trouble, nobody's going to be able to come after you personally unless there was something like fraud involved or something like that. So The LLC is what I would recommend as the alternative if you're not interested in venture capital investment. And now, Sabrina, you had a question, how do we decide, whether or not we're got 1 member, 2 members, 10 members? How do we, deal with the division of profits, equity, et cetera? So that is a conversation that all founders need to have. If you are more than one person, you need to have a conversation about how ownership of that company, whether it's an LLC or a C Corp, how that's going to be divided. And I can't tell you how many times I get founders that come to me and just say, we're just going to split everything equally. And there's no thought process behind it. And that, while it looks equal on the surface, I have found that oftentimes leads to a lot of resentment amongst co-founders, some of whom might be more involved in the company than others. And that can lead to, depending on the entity type, but it can lead to individuals leaving. In some cases, if you've formed an LLC, depending on what your operating agreement says, you may actually have to dissolve the company and reform if a member leaves. So those are some things to think about whenever you're trying to divide that equity out or ownership. Make sure that you take the time as co-founders to sit down and have a discussion about what each person is bringing to the table. What are strengths? What are weaknesses? What, is somebody investing capital? Who had the idea? Who's going to be doing the majority of the work? Is everybody equally committed? So make sure you have those ideas up front and that conversation up front. Make sure you're dividing equity in a way that's going to feel fair. And then make sure that you revisit that from time to time, because the last thing you want is for that animosity to build up and to fester. And sometimes, it's necessary to decrease somebody's equity, right? Or give somebody more equity for what they're doing with the company. And so it's not necessarily a static thing. And it's funny because you think that this is something that's very easy to just divide out equity. There's actually multiple different ways and structures out there if you Google it for how equity division should happen. So just make sure that you're doing it in a way that feels fair to all of you, but in a way that has thought and logic behind it. So if somebody came and asked you, okay, well, why did you divide this equally amongst the 3 of you? You'd be able to say, this person brings X to the table. I bring Y to the table. This person brings A, but then they also contributed this cash. Make sure you're able to articulate that and keep reevaluating.
Such a great point. It's fluidity. You can always revisit. So for us, when we formulate the financial debris, because it's such a big part, right? We have to give to our CFO to look at a predictive model, right? Which I do always recommend people not just talk to your attorney, talk to your financial person. They are experts. But you do have to give them the reason to say, okay, even for Postpoint, we have different phases of different engagements, and different advisor is involved at different phases. So of course, we're going to give higher profit split to the advisors who are more engaged in every single aspect versus the other one who's only involved in a later stage. Now, the same thing as founder level, I'm more of both a financial investor and a managing partner. And I brought in the idea, right? Yeah. So then, yes, of the 3 founders, I have a larger chunk of that because I'm more both the idea person and the behind the scene and the operation. And we do have our COO position as well, who's integrating. So now it's able to transition Sabrina, be the right face of the company, not be everything, right? But that doesn't mean that we're not recognizing. Now we're giving more, thinking about more splitting into our operational lead, right? And then it makes sense because that person going to be more involved into the day-to-day, both from the client side and all the advisors are being able to deliver the right level of care, right level of services. Now, it's okay to feel like we want to be fair, quote unquote, right?
Yeah.
3-way split seems to be an easy number to put, but at the end of the day, we're probably all doing 10,000 things. So we have to be able to both quantify the amount of time you're putting in and the amount of ROI. It's not just time anymore. We all know I teach about peak performance. Even though you spend 20 hours doing something, I might turn that into a 10-hour project. And so it's not so much about the time consumption, it's how you do it and what the result you're actually producing, right? So be able to be open and have these conversations is so crucial. So thank you for bringing that up. And then knowing, and we do have to talk to many different advisors to make sure you guys are all individually protected and pay your other founders back if that's the case, right? And they put out on their own bootstrapping. All right. So next thing we were talking about is that piece of protection, because from a marketing branding thing, that's heartache for me. If I have to go in and tell people, yeah, there's no brand alignment, and therefore I'm not willing to put you on all these media shows because you're going to confuse your audience, right? Or people have all these viewers going to your website. They are not really sure what you're doing. Then you have to rebrand and someone taking your name and whatever not, right? So it's not so much about giving you a giant microphone and just tell everyone about it, right? Which many founders no, we just need everyone to know about us. Now we're like, how do you protect yourself and make sure you have the right trademark and whatnot? So tell us a little bit about that process. I believe even though it takes months to process, but the initial application is relatively easy, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a great question. The thing with trademarks is that the actual filing of the trademark itself can take a day. It is a very fast process. What takes time is the actual search that should be conducted prior to any type of trademark filing. So what I recommend anytime a company is starting out and you think that you have a name, I look online to see if the domain is taken, because that can be a good indicator that somebody may already be using this name in commerce and it might be taken. Let's say that the domain name is available. The next thing that I do is I go to the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office's website, the USPTO website, and I run my own basic trademark search. Now, that website is very limited because it will only pull up exact matching results. And the thing with trademarks, right, is that we want to make sure that consumers aren't going to be confused. And so you might have, let's say you have Starbucks as your name, right? But you put 2 S's on the end, right? If you search for Starbucks with 2 S's, Starbucks itself may not pop up because it's not an exact match. But consumers would still be confused between Starbucks with 1 S and Starbucks with 2 S's. So just because nothing pops up on your search doesn't mean that you are home free. That's why we really need to run a much more comprehensive search with these third-party search providers. And so what they do is they run a comprehensive search through all these different types of federal and state databases, and they compile a list. And then what an attorney does is they look at that report and they prepare a memo to you saying whether or not they think your name is trademarkable or whether or not they think that name is already taken. And so then once that happens, right, and you agree, okay, maybe that's something we can proceed with, the next step is then preparing the application. The application itself is pretty simple. You put your name, you put the mark that you are trying to trademark, and then you have to select a class. And there's a lot of different classes that you can choose. The class is basically going to say, what are you doing, right? What type of good or service are you providing? So for instance, is it legal? Is it educational? Is this something that is a podcast? What is it that you're providing? And so you pick a classification because you register trademarks by that class. So just because you have a trademark, let's say that Sabrina, you had the trademark on Postpoint. Just because you have that doesn't mean that you can trademark Postpoint for sports equipment, right? Because that's not something that is part of your platform. So unless you're filing an application and showing that you're using that name in all of those different classes, your name will be protected for the specific class that you choose. And then that application gets submitted. Right now, wait times are about 9+ months for that to even get in front of a patent or a trademark official to come in and even look at your application. So it sits there. The good thing is, right, that the date you file, we are a first to file nation. So what that means is we go by the date the application is filed to determine who has the right to use that trademark. So your date will still get backdated to the date you filed, regardless of when it hits a trademark officer's desk. And then that trademark officer will look at that. They'll let you know if they have concerns. You might get an office action, right? You kind of go back and forth, and then eventually it's approved or denied. The other thing I would say with respect to trademarks is just because you see somebody else using a name doesn't necessarily mean it's available. For instance, when we were coming up with Fem Innovation, I will be honest, like it wasn't my first choice for a name. I was really keen. I had heard the term Fem Health before, and I thought, wow, that would be cool. Maybe we could do like Fem Health Consulting, right? Fem Health Innovation, right? Something like that. I did my trademark search, and guess what? Fem Health popped up as being a trademarked name. And I was like, this is interesting because literally like a couple of weeks before, I heard 2 other companies announce themselves as having Fem Health in their names. And so just because they had it didn't mean, they might be trademark violating somebody else's name out there. But if I was going with that, I could have potentially been misled and said, yeah, I can totally trademark that name. So just because somebody else is using it or you see somebody else commonly using a term or a phrase doesn't mean it doesn't have trademark protection on it.
So that tells us if your part of your name is already being trademarked, you should not use it. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah. So if part of the name has been trademarked, what you would have to have is some other very unique aspect to that name. So something like consulting, right? Or law firm, those are too generic to just add on to an already trademarked name. So there's got to be some kind of distinguishing, unique factor that's not just going to be generic.
Awesome. So it's separate word that has to be unique, not a generic term about what this company is.
Exactly. And not everything is trademarkable. For instance, Women's Health Innovation Consulting, that is not a trademarkable name. Why? Well, because these are all very generic terms, right? Women's health, innovation, consulting. So it's very generic and not in a way that's going to at all have something that consumers would say, oh yeah, like this, I can identify this as the company. So because of that, we can't, or it's been recommended that we don't try to get a trademark on that name.
Okay, that makes sense. So if for people to even think about content creation, trademark your content, because this is something we talk to people about. You are the educator. You are putting all this information out for free, right? And some people do paid only broadcasting, but we always talk about you should trademark it because someone else can come up with the same name and took it. And that also means the name of that show should be somewhat unique. Because if it's just health tech, there's too many things have health tech. Yes. You have to add something else afterwards to be very specific about it. And it's also not just health tech podcast that's too generic. So you need to make sure you have that middle word where somehow that really stands out.
Exactly right, Sabrina. You've got to have something that is going to be identifiable for consumers and unique, and also something, right, that's not going to be easily, used by somebody else who's already in business, because that's where you get into trouble and you can have those high rebranding costs at an early stage when you can't really afford it if you use a name that somebody else has already trademarked. So that's also kind of where you want to make sure you're staying clear. And the other thing that I wanted to say too is once you've submitted that trademark application, right, and you're using that name, what you can also do to kind of enhance your protection is put in the, kind of the superscript, right, is SM, which means service mark, right? To show that like, this is a service mark that I am in the process of trademarking. It is mine. Don't have a trademark yet, right? But it puts people on notice that you have made that filing and this is a protected mark, hopefully.
Yes, definitely put that out there. Because you can only use the R for register, but before that you can use the SM, right? As you were saying?
Yeah, use SM. You can't use the TM until you actually get that trademark. So make sure that you're using SM after you filed your application.
Perfect. Make sure you have that. Would you recommend everyone add it to their logo or to some kind of branding messaging?
Yep, exactly. Especially like on the first page of your website, kind of wherever you're first using it. You don't have to use it every single time, but at least kind of in those high key visibility areas.
Perfect. All right. And protect yourself, knowing how to do that, very key, important. Now, we know there's a lot more topics that we can get into. Today, we're really dived into the company information and protection of your really baby, right? Like it's been years and sweat, equity plus money, go building that. We needed to make sure that no one just easily take that away from you. There are other
challenges that Bethany mentioned, I'm sure we'll be doing more episodes. But thank you so much for being here with us. We had definitely a fun engagement of conversation. Until next time. But before I let you guys jump off, Bethany, how can people find out more information? I'm sure they're going to be wanting to have a conversation with you on whatever they are focusing on.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm very active on LinkedIn. You can find me on linkedin.com/in/Bethany Corbin. My website is bethanycorbin.com. And then I'm also on on Instagram at FemTech Lawyer.
Perfect. All right. Find all of that on our show note, and definitely check out and connect with Bethany on LinkedIn. I would recommend that you open up your LinkedIn app right now and type in Bethany Corbin. Send her a message. Guess what I'm going to tell you next? Add a personal message. When people don't send me a personal message, I usually don't accept. So the best way to stand out is to say something along the line of that you heard her on our podcast, or you have seen her posting something unique, and then make it a personable connection. All right. Appreciate you guys all staying on, and until next time. Bye, guys.
All right, before we wrap up, we really wanted to showcase the best of the best in the industry, especially helping the noisy healthcare innovation space. So Bethany, tell us, what made you so strongly believe in Postpoint Path and being an advisor for them, and what made them so unique that they can really solve this market penetration and business advancement issue that many founders are facing?
Yeah, Sabrina, one of the best things that I love about Postpoint Path is the fact that it is focused on the entire ecosystem to get companies to that next level. So as you know, right, so many companies stall whenever they reach a certain level of growth, and they have a lot of trouble pushing through those barriers to reach an increasingly beneficial stage of growth. And oftentimes they're searching, right? They're saying, okay, well, what do I need to be doing on a legal perspective? Or what do I need to be doing from a marketing perspective? And they're talking to different vendors and different experts, but nobody has brought together the cohesive whole to say, let's see what marketing and legal and business all say together in order to drive you to that next level. And Postpoint Path does exactly that. And it's something that hasn't been done before in the industry, especially for healthcare innovation. And it's something I think that's going to be so beneficial for companies that are looking to enter their next stage. They don't know how to do it. Maybe they don't have all the connections that they need in order to think about and examine and really evaluate their company holistically. And that's exactly what Postpoint Path offers. They essentially have an entire board that's going to work for you, look at this holistically, and show you where those pain areas are and teach you how to move past them to reach that next level.
Yeah, thank you so much for clarifying that. And just a follow up now, what do you see from the legal benefit in that, especially from, let's say, putting yourself in a hat of investor, looking into all those companies, and perhaps even as a founder of requiring some of those help?
Yeah, what's interesting is that oftentimes legal gets very siloed, right? We're only told to come in and look at this contract, right? Or to look at this specific litigation that's going on. And so oftentimes legal doesn't get fully integrated into the C-suite in a way that will allow it to understand the business objectives and what's going on at every single level of the company. And with Postpoint Path, we actually get to do that, which is very exciting to me because I like to be fully integrated into my clients' work, not only because it helps me to better spot legal issues for my clients, but because there may be things that my clients doing or planning to do from a strategic business perspective that maybe they don't know that they can't do from a legal perspective and wouldn't think to ask for help or ask for advice on those issues. Interestingly, for instance, marketing is something that we don't really think about from a legal perspective, right? But here's the thing. We've had clients before that have gone and let their marketing department do their own thing, and they don't realize that they're running afoul of maybe FDA laws or FTC laws on what can be said that's not deceptive or misleading to consumers. And so by having legal working in the same room with marketing, we actually get that cross collaboration, and we can make sure that that everything is being done in a way that's going to further the company's objectives while being legally sound and not setting yourself up for risk, which, believe me, investors are looking for, right? They're looking to poke holes in everything that you've built. And so if an investor, for instance, gets a hold of that marketing strategy or the documents and they're able to say, ooh, this is misleading to consumers, that's going to throw the entire rest of your business model into question for them, and they're going to scrutinize it more heavily. So having everybody in that same room, cross-collaborating, talking together, that's a huge benefit for businesses and for investors as well, looking at these companies and seeing that they've had this holistic advice and insight.
Embarking on a journey of scaling your health tech venture is no small feat. It requires a holistic approach, integrating legal insights, operational strategy, and founder's vision. Integrating legal expertise into your business strategy and leveraging the power of diverse advisory board can transform challenges into opportunities. Today, we discuss 7 key points. Number 1, harnessing legal knowledge as a market differentiator. In the health tech industry, a profound understanding of legal aspect is crucial for market differentiation and innovation. By viewing legal compliance as a strategic tool rather than a mere obligation, entrepreneurs can transform regulatory challenges into opportunities for consumer trust, market share expansion, and ultimately achieving market dominance. Number 2, strategic corporate strategy for long-term success. Choosing the right corporate strategy, such as a Delaware C Corp or a LLC, is a strategic decision crucial for the long-term success of your health tech venture. This choice influences investors' appeal, growth potential, and operational flexibility, aligning the company's legal foundation with its broader business objectives and readiness for future expansion. Number 3, brand identity and the critical role of trademarks. In the competitive nature of this industry, trademarking your brand is crucial for establishing a distinct market presence and reputation. It goes beyond legal compliance, serving a strategic step to crafting a unique brand identity, ensure legal protection, and foster consumer trust and loyalty, vital for long-term relationship building that can drive increasing revenue. Number 4, legal integration, a pillar of robust business strategy. Integrating legal consideration into a business strategy is crucial for health tech and FemTech companies, forming a synergy between compliance and innovation. This approach ensures operations are legally sound while optimizing for market relevance, crucial for sustaining a competitive edge in the rapidly evolving healthcare landscape. Number 5, the game-changing impact of diverse advisory board. An integrated and diverse advisory board is pivotal for FemTech ventures, providing various perspective and expert guidance crucial for navigating industry challenges and drive sustainable growth. Number 6, effective strategy for sustainable scaling. Scaling in any tech company demands more than just hard work. It requires a strategy that harmonizes legal compliance, operational efficiency, and market strategy, essential for overcoming growth plateau and ensuring sustainable growth in a dynamic industry. To overcoming and understanding how to create the sustainability, it goes back to our previous key point of having an integrated board member, not just a title board, but a functioning board. Number 7, mastering high-level deal closure in health tech. In the digital technology world, closing high-level deals goes beyond product innovation, demanding strategic negotiation, understanding of legal compliance and market demands, as well as building strategic partners and networks to facilitate successful negotiation and market industry leadership. The journey to breakthrough growth plateau is not just about innovation and market presence. It's about embracing the complexity of legal landscape as a cornerstone for sustainable growth. Share your experience and insight with us by posting it on LinkedIn and tag me, Sabrina Rombach. I would love to join you on a conversation to steer these successful plans toward a brighter, more efficient future to bypass the gatekeepers and growth plateaus. Now, tell us what strategies resonate with your tech venture from what we discussed today.
Thank you for listening. Remember, the positive change we're seeking starts right here with me and you. If you are a fan of the show, or if you are just having struggles or success that you're either experienced in the past or are experiencing now in the healthcare industry, these matter to all of us. I want to hear from you. Visit sabrinarumback.com/connect and send me a direct message. Talk soon.